Airial, if I could marry her brain, it would be amazing.
If you need anything technical.
She is down to earth. She's fun. She's very easy to network with.
Anything systems oriented.
Just anything web dev techie that I don't understand, Airial has swooped in and fixed. And she's my accountability bulldog.
She is a queen.
Anything infrastructure related.
She is helpful, and she helps guide and answer all your questions that you have about growing your business and networking and getting started.
She gives me life. She just gives me life.
Airial Re'nal is your girl. Welcome to the TrepTECH Podcast with your host, Airial Re'nal.
I just want to marry her brain. She's a genius.
Welcome to the TrepTECH Podcast. I am your loyal servant, Scott Doucet, and I am here with the phenomenal, the fantabulous, the amazing Airial Re'nal, our host. Airial, how you doing?
Thanks, Scott. Thank you so much. You are awesome in your own right. You know that?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. You notice that, as the intro is going, I am degrading myself and I'm putting you up on a higher pedestal.
But I put you up on a pedestal, so that balances us out.
By episode 6, I'll be like, I'm your butler.
You signed up for this. Just remember that.
I push buttons. Here's Airial.
But I absolutely love you, Scott. I really, really do.
I appreciate that. I love you too. But we're here for more important things than a circle jerk. We're here to talk about business. We're here to teach people stuff. So what do you want to talk about today?
Well, you know what? Last episode, we talked about me and my origin story. So I want to flip it. I want to give you a chance to talk about yourself so people understand where you're coming from, why we, click so well, and why they should listen to you. So
why I'm here.
Yeah, your purpose.
Being put on the spot. What purpose do I serve?
Why do I put up with you? Yeah, all that good stuff.
Love it. Yeah. Where do you want me to start? What do you want to know?
Oh, so you have been my podcast producer for 2-3 years now.
It's been a while.
I don't even know the time frame. But it's not just producer. I consider you a coach, a consultant. You've helped me so much with how to work in a podcast with my business, how to use it as a marketing realm, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
How did you even get into podcasting yourself?
Oh, snap. Okay. So I have always been a bit of a quiet kid. I liked video games and stuff like that growing up. I didn't really like to go out and deal with a lot of people. I wasn't very I was social when I had to be, but it took a lot out of me. And so when people were starting to look for their first jobs and go out and, apply for summer jobs and stuff like that, I got a job at a radio station, and it literally consisted of me waking up at 4 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays to go into a glass room and talk to myself.
Huh.
And that's what I did in high school. I literally was a radio personality, and I did sports, news, and weather. And eventually they started letting me cut my teeth on production, setting up the top 40 shows, producing the weekly gospel hour, little things like that, where I just go in and...
Wait a minute, you did gospel?
I didn't do the gospel. I put it in its proper time slot and did some programming, did that whole thing. And of course I listened to it because I'm there, I'm at the station. So I worked from 4 a.m. until noon on Saturdays and Sundays. I gave up every weekend when most kids are out partying and staying up all night, I was in bed by 9 because I had to be up at 3. And I did that for a while, and then I left because I was still a kid and I lived in the middle of the country and I had no transportation after a while. So I left, and I got other retail jobs and hated every single one of them. And when I graduated high school, I started a band. and we recorded all of our own EPs. We recorded all of our own music, our vocals, our everything. We bought all the gear, learned all the software, learned all the crazy stuff that we needed to, and learned how to book gigs, learned how to merchandise, like did all this really cool stuff. And I was really passionate about it. And my drummer was really passionate about it. But we had a singer and a bass player. One was an alcoholic and one really just wasn't into it. And so we did that for a few years, and eventually we burned out. We weren't getting any traction because two of us were trying to hold up four people, and it just wasn't working. We weren't getting, we didn't learn enough about the business. We were artists, you know? And so I kind of tucked my tail between my legs. I quit music, and I worked in retail sales jobs for like, I want to say a good 10 years. And every time I got one of these jobs, I'd start at the ground, they'd promote me. I'd start at the ground, they'd promote me. And like, I didn't like leadership because leadership meant managing like big teams of people. And I don't like people for the most part. I do, but I don't, you know. I like people in small doses on my terms. I don't like having to deal with like groups of people all day long in a public environment. Like retail establishments are
He's
like,
an introvert, everybody.
yeah,
He's not antisocial. He's an introvert.
We
so
should talk
forget
about
him.
personality types at some point. And thank you for clearing
Definitely.
that up. Like, I'm friendly, I'm nice, just not in public. Like, it takes me a lot to not want to hit people at Walmart, you know? So my wife does all the shopping. No, I'm kidding. I do some, but I get mad. So yeah, I kept finding myself like being promoted into these leadership positions because everyone was like, my bosses were always like, you're really good at inspiring people. You're good at
You are.
you see the best in people, you know where to put people and where they're going to excel and where they're going to struggle. And they're like, you can systemize things that make a team run. We need you in leadership. But what they failed to realize is that I've got weaknesses there too. So I couldn't do it long term. So I'd always quit, start at the bottom of another company, get built all the way up to leadership, quit. You know, and that process went on and on and on until one day I was managing a pet store, and my boss told me that I was going to have to stay 14 hours and close the store. And he looked at me and like, don't worry, we'll pay you, as if he was doing me a favor. And in the heat of the moment, I threw my keys in his face and said, you can close your own damn store. And I left. And this was after like 4 years of solid abuse, having my job threatened, like a lot of things that I don't know why I tolerated it so long, but I was afraid, you know, I was afraid that if I left my job, I was not going to have any money, and then I wasn't going to be able to pay the bills, and then I was going to, all these things. And I threw my keys in his face. I left. And on my way home, I was like, the hell did I just do? I feel amazing. Like, I feel so good. I feel free. I feel like just, I could take on the world, but only for a couple of days till I run out of food.
Yeah. And then it's scary as hell.
And I realized that I burned a very large bridge and had like no reference. Like, I had all my references from the past, but I just gave up like a 4-year management reference. So I was like, okay, well, that was dumb. I probably should have been a little more peaceful about that. But when you get so deep in a company that no matter how you leave, they're going to be offended, you can leave however you want. So I did it that way. And then when I got home, I looked at, you know, my significant other at the time, and I was like, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to teach people. I'm going to inspire people. I'm going to teach them work ethic. I'm going to teach them, you know, all these things that they need to succeed. I'm going to go speak in high schools, and I'm going to do that. And I had all this ideas. So I started a brand called Edge Motivation. And that's what I did. I just, I got in touch with a gentleman by the name of Mark Black. He was on the student speaking circuit, and he taught me how to book gigs in schools. And he taught me how to write a speech because public speaking in schools is different. It's weird. It's the only place I know of where you're marketing to 45-year-old conservative people to speak to 13-year-old angsty kids. So your message has to be attractive to the kids, but your pitch has to be attractive to the older people.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a gap. And I would have never understood that if it weren't for my coach. And he kind of taught me how to play both sides of that coin. And so I learned how to do that. I got my first like $50 speech. I was like, oh, I just got paid $50 for 45 minutes. What? Like, I was used to working for like $10 an hour, you know, if that. When I started working, I was getting literally minimum wage was $5.75. So like, think about that. Like, I was used to making $5.75 an hour, $10 an hour, $13 an hour. And all of a sudden someone hands me a $50 check for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I went and I immediately took, because I didn't even have a car at the time. I had my brother-in-law drive me to my gig. Like, how professional is that? He drove me and he took pictures, and I brought him out to lunch, and I blew my $50 right there and then just to say thank you. We went out to lunch, we had a beer, we celebrated, and then I was hooked immediately. My next gig, I got 200 for it, And so same 45 minutes, same speech. It 4 times in value just because I became confident. And I was like, no, this is worth money. People want it. They're going to pay for it. So then when I got $200 in 45 minutes, I was like, well, okay, this is great. And like, you need to understand, like at the time I was in music, I had a foot tall mohawk and wore skinny jeans so tight, like you could see everything. Okay. Guitarist in a band. The kids loved me, but the principals were terrified of me. And so like gigs were a little hard to land, and it was feast famine. Like I would eat when money would come in and I wouldn't. So I went and got some part-time work, and I worked 2 jobs and tried to develop that brand for a long time, and it didn't really work out, and so I job hopped, cell phone sales, retail, clothing, shoes. I worked in shoes for a while. That was fun. I've never seen so many happy women in my life as working in a shoe store. Oh, you want to hold the keys to happiness? Work at a shoe store and sell a lady a pair of shoes she just dies for. The amount of pure bliss that she, shows and portrays, like you can't help but love your job. So if you had a job where you see happiness on tap, sell shoes. But so I did all that stuff. And then finally I told a friend of mine, his name is Mark Mawini. I was like, man, I'm struggling. I was like, I'm trying to run this inspirational brand, but I'm having a hard time booking speaking gigs. And he was like, why don't you start a podcast? He's like, you've worked on the radio. You've done music. You know how to record. You know how to produce. Why don't you do a podcast talking about your content and send the teachers and principals to the podcast for reference so that they'll book you? And I went, huh. Like a literal living, breathing CV, professional CV that I could send people to, like a link in an email, and they'll just click it, listen to it, and decide, yeah, we like them or no, we don't. That's great. That's brilliant. I'm going to do that. So we spent a month. He taught me how. I signed up for his 30-day program. Again, coaching. You mentioned it in your story. Coaching was very big for you. Coaching twice took me from being retail to owning my own business. And so he coached me through how to start a podcast. When we got to the end of it, he was like, you're really good at this. Do you mind if I refer clients to you and you can produce their shows? And I was like, I had never really thought of that, but that's an excellent business. Let's do that. So his brother needed help, and Matt runs a company called Pod Assist. And so I interned with them for a little while. I got a paid internship. So I got paid to learn how to produce podcasts specifically for their clientele. And then when they decided, okay, we're going to work with somebody else, I had all of these skills and everything that I needed to actually start this on my own. And I did. And so that became coaching people how to launch podcasts and then producing podcasts for people. And I just recently, I think I took my first production client on in November of 2016. By March, I was able to quit both of my jobs. By November the following year, November 2017, I had hired a producer to do the bulk of my editing for me so I could focus on growing the business. And I just hired a writer a few days ago to help me with the show notes and all that aspect, so that now my job is literally manage the money, get the sales, keep clients happy, and do the PR.
I don't think I've ever heard that story in its entirety. And I didn't realize Mark Mawini, who I also follow, got you started on that path. Wow.
Oh, yeah, Mark gave me a real healthy kick in the pants. Both Marks actually did. Mark Black told me I was going to have to cut my hair and get a real job someday in a much nicer way. But he told me that I'm going to have to do what it takes to succeed. And sometimes that means sacrificing some things that I think are really important to me. And he was right. I'm not that attached to the mohawk. I have beautiful hair. And so I cut it into a more professional cut, and people started taking me seriously, And Mark Mawini was the one who said, listen, you've got skills to pay the bills. Why are you still selling cell phones for $20 a commission?
Oh, I like that. Skills to pay the bills.
Yeah. He was like, you've got, my brother is doing what you're capable of doing right now. Why aren't you? And so they taught me how to do it, and then sent me on my way.
And that's the beauty of having a coach, because they can see a bigger picture and help you realize you can do and see the possibilities out there. and then help you set it into play.
Look, a coach fills in blanks where you thought a complete sentence was before. Like a coach will take the word, I don't know how to do it. And they'll say, I don't know how to do it yet. They'll take, I can't. And they'll say, I can't right now because I don't have the specific training, but in a month from now, I will. Like a coach just completely blows things. Like they take you away from your own problems and help you discover that the problem is only one part of a much bigger picture. And that you've got the painting tool so you can change the picture. You know, that's where coaching really came in handy for me. So now, like, this is my full-time gig. I don't work anywhere else. I don't have another income aside from my business. I'm married. I have a baby. You know, I just bought my house, like cash. We own the thing. And don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying it's a mansion, like very, very real here. I did not go and drop like $1 million on a house because I'm that successful. We paid $12,000 for it. We paid $12,000 for a house, but we don't have a mortgage anymore. Problem is it's an absolute shack. So we've got to fix it up, but it's got internet, it's got walls, and it's got a heater. I'm good. I've already electrocuted myself twice and flooded the place, but I'm learning. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the origin story of like job hopping, hating my life, working in places that didn't really fit me or suit me. And then realizing that skills that I learned when I was like 15 years old helped me create a business when I was like 28 and changed my entire life.
And I've been privy to watch that transformation from your first production client to now.
Yeah, I think you were my second client. You were either my second or third client, and it was in December of 2016. So we hadn't even hit the new year yet. We were talking about launching your show in the new year, January 2017.
Right, because you had asked about how to hire a VA.
Yeah, I called you for help.
Yeah, and then I was like, how is your whole production thing going? And you told me, and then you said some stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, it costs how much? And you're going to do all of this? You're hired. We're starting in February or January, whenever we started.
We started in January for a February launch.
Yeah, and then boom, from there, the rest is history.
And it just goes to show you, like, if people want what you do and they're okay with, and you know, like I just set a price. And at the time, I didn't feel like I was worth that price. Like I knew what I did was in demand, but I didn't know if people would pay it. I knew I was worth it, but I didn't know if people would pay it. And so I had to sit there and just kind of practice spitting that number out. And all 3 times I spit that number out, I only had one person negotiate me down. It was my very first client. And it's just because he couldn't afford it. And he only negotiated me down $20. Literally $20. That's all he did. And then eventually he added that $20 to it because he got to a point where he felt good about it. You know, he was like, yeah, this is worth it. Here's your original asking price. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. You know, so like, and since then, our prices have gone up. You know, obviously, the demand has gone up. The team has expanded. The business is, I've gone from being self-employed and owning a job to now I run a system and other people work with me. So I officially have a business. I have leverage. I'm in a place where people equal money instead of time equals money. And so like that has been an absolute shift for me. 2019 is starting off in a really unique way. I've never been in this position before. So for me, it's growing into what it looks like to run an organization this year. You know, I've already done the building a business, the picking a service, getting it out there, making clients happy, getting the revenue in. And then now what? Been there, done that. Hiring the first team, outsourcing the projects, done that. And now I'm here.
I mean, I give you a chance to speak and then you just don't shut up.
I've done a lot. But you know, now I'm kind of here and I don't know what the next step looks like. I've got ideas, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, we have so much to talk about now because you know how my mind goes. I have a million questions I want to ask you about that journey and to share with other people about that journey because me and you have talked about the ups and downs over the last 3 years. And we've had some times where we wanted to give up, where we wanted to get a job, where we just wanted to just completely quit, where we had to rethink things. We tried something, it didn't work. So we tried something else. I definitely want to share that journey with other people because that's really what entrepreneurship is.
I hope your people want to hear about the countless times I've cried behind the wheel of my car because that has happened. At least it's not under the wheel of my car, you know?
Right.
But yeah, no, it's been a hell of a ride. And I know like I just broad brushed it and made it sound super easy just now. And I don't want to oversimplify or over glorify it. It's been hell at times, but it's been worth it every single time.
Exactly. It's been worth it. So thanks again, Scott, for telling us your origin story. Don't get used to being able to talk this much on my podcast.
You don't need to piss on fire hydrants. We know who it belongs to.
The only thing you're here for is to help me remember what I'm going to talk about and how awesome I am. So just...
Hence the intro, your loyal servant.
But honestly, thanks again. And thank you for being such a friend, such a biz bestie. And oh my gosh, I have a million things I want to talk to you about over the episodes of this podcast. So let's just go ahead and close out this episode so we can get started on the next.
That is a plan. Now, if you want to connect with Airial or myself, feel free to do so by checking out the show notes. Airial's pretty much on every social media platform. I've got an Instagram and a Facebook. You can check out the websites that are there. You could check out The Veteran Woman. You could check out Podcast Bay's Facebook page. Just come meet up with us and start a conversation. We're both really into relationships, and that is what we want to forge today with you. We'll sell you stuff eventually. Don't you worry about it. But for now, it's all about connecting. So thank you for listening in, because without you, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. We would just be talking to ourselves. Cheers until the next one.
Thank you for tuning in to the TrepTECH Podcast. But if you like what you heard, go on to Apple Podcast and bring her a 5-star review. And also, if you want to check out her service while she transforms mindsets, navigating entrepreneurship, leveraging technology, building relationships while bridging the gap in your business, check out TrepTECHacademy.com. That's TrepTECHacademy.com.